What is going on, guys? We are back with another trade breakdown video. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I took two separate trades on Coinbase this past Friday, which yielded over 1,300% in gains. I'm going to show you my exact entry and exit strategy, as well as show you exactly how I found this setup. Let's get into it right now. All right, guys. So as I mentioned, I actually took two separate trades on Coinbase. I'm going to be covering each of those in detail. Let's go over the first trade, which was the overnight swing on the $55 calls. Now, as you can see here, we are looking at the Coinbase daily chart. So if you are following along, we're looking at the daily chart on Coinbase from this past Friday, January 27th. Now, the reason that I took this first trade, let me clarify. This first trade was an overnight swing on Thursday night. So I entered the position at about 3 o'clock on Friday, and I actually took this position into Friday morning. Now, when I took that position, what I was looking at was this daily chart on Coinbase, which I noticed was forming this really nice pennant on the daily. And we had been in a consolidation pattern now for about 4 to 5 days. Now, as you guys probably know, I know Coinbase stock very, very well. And so when I see this type of consolidation pattern, it's actually something that I'm going to be looking for when I look at possibly taking a trade overnight. As I mentioned, an overnight trade for me is always going to be smaller size. So I tweeted out on Friday afternoon that I was taking the $55 weekly calls and risking about $1,000 on this trade with 20 contracts at a $54 per contract cost basis. So I bought the $55 calls that were expiring the next day for $54 per contract. These contracts ended up running to over $700 per contract the very next day. And the way that I found this trade was by looking at that pennant on the daily. When I noticed this daily candle right here was my entry point on January 26th. And as you can see, we touched the bottom end of this trend. And once we did that, I said to myself, that is an A+ risk reward opportunity for me on the long side. While I was holding this position overnight and size smaller, I knew that the upside potential was great if we got a retest of the top of this trend, which would have been at the $56 to $57 resistance level, as you can see here. That was our high from that day itself, was 56.16. I knew that if we tested the top end of that range the next day with growth stock strong, we could have a really nice position that would be deep in the money the next morning and would yield a really nice return. Now, guys, as you can see, the very next day, we gapped up all the way to the $62 level. I actually sold this $55 call position that very next morning, about 20 minutes into market open at around 9:50. I sold this position for over $107 per contract. So I got a 100% return on my investment. And I took off that position because we were approaching that $57 resistance level. Now, the fact that I exited that trade is actually going to lead into the second trade, which was on the $60 weekly calls. And this was the position that generated over a 1,300% return for me. Now, guys, after I exited that initial position that I took overnight for a little bit over 100%, yes, those calls did end up running about 1,800% that very day. However, what I did was I exited that first position on Coinbase, and I knew that if we broke this $57 resistance, which we had been dealing with for about 5 straight days, that we were going to have a big move to the upside. If you look at the Coinbase weekly chart, we had a lot of support in that $57 range. So if a stock is going to reclaim its major prior support on the weekly time frame to close out the week, I know that we're likely going to see a big move to the upside, as that's going to trigger a test of the next resistance level on that weekly or daily chart. And in this case on Coinbase, I knew that if we reclaimed that prior support at this $57 level, which was now acting as firm resistance, we all know the saying, the harder the resistance is to break, the bigger the breakout. So if a stock like Coinbase, which I know very well and I speak to as being a huge advantage of knowing a stock like the back of your hand, I know that when Coinbase breaks really heavy resistance levels, it likes to run really hard that same day. And what do you know, guys? In this case, we're looking at the 4-hour chart on Coinbase. So about 40 minutes after I exited that initial position, I bought a small position with profits from that first trade in the $60 call weeklies, which I put in my Discord here. I bought 15 contracts for about $18 per contract, so risking about $350 on this position. So guys, as I was playing with profits, like I mentioned, I took that small position on the $60 weekly calls. Now that we're looking at the 15-minute chart on Coinbase, I'm going to go through a little bit more of an exact detailed entry on this exact candle. So if you look here, I entered the position at 10:43 a.m. I entered this on a pullback to the $56 level, which was our prior day's high. The reason that I entered prior to the 57 break is, once again, guys, I'm really familiar with this stock and I know when it's acting really, really strong. And when I see Coinbase acting as strong as it was alongside the massive bullish weekly and next week call flow that we saw in the stock, I'm going to say that's a pretty good small size entry for me with huge upside potential. So I was risking about $350. And just for reference, if you held this position just to the end of the day, that position would have been worth well over $4,200. So guys, I entered in on a pullback to the prior day's high at the 56.38 level. And once we got that move and retest, we saw a massive move, guys, through this $57 resistance level, which had been a huge area that we were dealing with. I even added to this position on the 57 break, which I tweeted out here. And I said, hey guys, I'm adding 4 more contracts of the Coinbase $60 weekly calls. At that point, they were up about 15%. And then look at the move that we saw once we got over that $57 daily resistance, which I pointed out inside that pennant, guys. We saw a massive move to the upside, guys, running all the way to that $60 resistance level on the psychological spot, and then going all the way up to that $62 resistance on the weekly chart. By the end of the day, guys, when I sold my 90% of my position, these contracts were up a little over 1,300%. And I tweeted my exit here and here, where I sold those contracts for a little over $190 per contract from $18 per contract. It was an absolutely massive trade, guys, and totally set the end of the month off on the right foot. So guys, let's review as to why I entered these trades. On the overnight, I was looking at that daily pennant and we saw a test of the bottom of that range on the daily chart. I entered in on a test of that support at the $52 level into close on Thursday. And for the 0 data expiration $60 calls, I entered in on a retest of the prior day's high, which ended up leading to a break of the $57 major daily resistance breakout spot. And we saw that move all the way to 62 plus. So this is a perfect example of using some very basic strategies to your advantage at the end of the week. If you know a stock well, like the back of your hand, you could really take advantage of these large scale moves, especially in the current market environment that we are in. All right, guys, I hope this trade breakdown video was helpful. If you enjoy these videos and you want to see more, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as it helps out the channel a ton. See you next time. Peace.